Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you once again for joining us on another episode of Talking Fight, featuring Christian from the Friday night panel and his ongoing exploration of the Olympics and specifically boxing at the Olympics. What do you got for us today, Christian?
Well, Graham, good to be back after a long weekend, but it is a couple of things that we were talking about last week, and what's something that just keeps coming up in our conversations, both on and off the air, about these big tournaments, and it's a lot of the logistics and the moving parts behind these tournaments, right? So, and can you do this on short notice, and what are some of these moving parts? So I came across this great article actually in the Globe and Mail this morning, and I won't go through the whole thing with you because we do get into very sport specific, regulations for horses and equestrian, which we don't necessarily need to dive too deeply into here. But at least this will give you a bit of a snapshot as to what actually is going on as far as the behind the scenes infrastructure for our athletes here. Because long before any of Canada's athletes are going to be able to go, vie for gold at any sport, that this Olympics, there is already a highly complex plans in motion to transport hundreds of team members, including horses for the equestrian events, as well as thousands of kilograms of gear, favorite food, team clothing, and boats. Okay, so there's a lot going on right now. So this is challenging at the best of times to get all the athletes and their equipment across the world to compete. But during a global pandemic, which has become a bit of a head-spinning affair just for any kind of international travel, let alone shipping, this has become kind of nothing less than a Herculean task. For example, Rowing Canada started prepping in 2019 at the World Junior Championships in Tokyo, which gave the organization some valuable experience as well as insight into what to pack, how to get it there. And that's both for the games as well as their pre-event training camp that they'll be holding 50 kilometers away from Tokyo in Sagamihara City. So when they discovered things like whole grain bread wasn't easy to find in Japan, team leaders took note of this and decided that they're going to be bringing bread making machines to the Olympics as well as the Paralympics so that they can bake their own. They thought of, thinking about how to deal with the extreme summer heat in Japan. They plan to bring cooling tubs and slushy machines.
Wow.
They'll be bringing board games in order to keep bubbled athletes entertained. Maintenance tools, a variety of other items have also been packed onto 3 large shipping pallets. This is just for the rowing team. 3 large shipping pallets that'll head to Tokyo ahead of the Olympics, which start in just a few weeks' time. The Canadian Olympic Committee is going to be sending about 400 athletes to the Canadian Olympic. That's going to be our delegation, the Canadian delegation to the Olympics, and about 130 athletes for the Paralympics. So they have plenty of experience sending people and their stuff to major games, even last minute, following things like last minute qualifying events. Yet preparing for Tokyo has created some unique challenges, even for the most seasoned of logistics staffers. So the Canadian Olympic Committee, for example, has had to store some 31,000 pieces of Hudson's Bay Team Canada clothing for the athletes since the Tokyo Games got postponed last year. This is an array of items including denim, maple leaf shirts, red and white clothing. Now, this was all unpacked and hung by the thousands in a Montreal warehouse to protect against the collection of dust, must, or other unsightly creases that before the world sees these things on Canadian athletes. So now somebody has to go in and repack all of this, 31,000 pieces of clothing, and then ship it to Japan. In the past, the Canadian Olympic Committee and the Canadian Paralympic Committee have gathered gear and essentials for their sports and packed them into sea freight containers and then sent one big Team Canada shipment a few months in advance of the Games. They sent 18 of those containers over the water in 2016 for the Rio Olympics. Sending that big Canadian shipment on a month-long journey over the ocean, though, carries more risks. And especially during the pandemic, shipping related delays or, the game cancellation, there's a lot of, again, moving parts. So this year, the Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee have decided to charter a cargo plane instead, which buys them a bit of extra time to pack, as well as gives them a more precise arrival date in Japan. Like the rowers, Canada's other sports have packed all kinds of things that they're going to need to train and compete and feel at home in Japan. This is going to be things like, medical supplies, tools, coolers, fans, cleaning supplies, masks, horse blankets, bike pumps, blenders, as well as, those Canadian foods that are going to help them perform. Things that they're used to, protein bars, maple syrup, stocking up on peanut butter, which, that seems pretty normal. That's across all sports. Everyone loves that stuff for the protein. And while many of these things are available in Japan, strict restrictions on the participants' movements within Tokyo are going to mean that they're not going to be able to get outside of the Olympic Village to actually shop for these things locally. So this shipment is much smaller, though, that should be said, than the one to Rio was. But that's since with no foreign fans attending, strict distancing rules in place, there's no need to bring big shipment of hospitality items that the Canadian Olympic Committee would normally bring to entertain visiting Canadians as well as athletes at large gatherings. In total, approximately 260 pallets of inventory will travel by truck from Montreal to Chicago's O'Hare Airport and then fly on to Japan's Narita Airport in the coming weeks. And one of the monster challenges outside of just the shipping of gear that these people are facing right now is flights to Japan have been changing, and direct flights into Tokyo are hard to come by. For teams like, for example, track cycling, whose athletes are likely going to be flying together with about 40 bags of checked luggage, and that's going to include bikes. Connecting flights could spell major headaches if they end up on a smaller plane with not enough cargo for that, to support all the gear that they're traveling with. Now, normally, sports federations are going to have a bit more flexibility about when and how they fly athletes to and from the games. But the pandemic has hit the airline industry hard, and the number of available flights is, that's in flux. That's moving day to day. Also, per game protocols limit the number of people, and athletes can only arrive in the Olympic Village in Tokyo between 5 and 7 days before their competition begins, and must leave within 48 hours after it's done. So for many, this is becoming really tough to find flights within that tight window. Knowing that before they can even leave for Tokyo, each person also has to submit 2 negative COVID-19 tests within 96 hours of their flight, along with a meticulous 14-day plan of all their planned destinations and who they will be interacting with once they're actually in Tokyo. So that's just a bit of a snapshot to give you an idea of just some of the moving parts. And we've got a good-sized delegation headed to Tokyo with 400 athletes, but when you start thinking about countries like the U.S., where they're talking about sending 1,400 athletes to the games, these are all plane tickets. These are all these people need to get flights at the same time. And then people coming from all over the world. So it just kind of gives you a bit of an idea as to the headache involved. And another reason why these games are not going to get canceled, because how much money has already been spent. A lot of this equipment is already en route to Japan from all over the world, and making its way slowly around the globe, some by air, some by sea, some by land, I'm sure. Well, as much as one can by land. Eventually, you're going to have to go air or sea. Japan is an island. But just an idea of the headache. But let's, we'll move away from the games. You guys are getting a good idea of that. Let's get back into boxing specifically. It's been a few days since we've been here. So AIBA president, Mr. Umar Kremlev, recently met with referees and judges who are working at the ASBC Asian Men and Women's Championships, as well as the referee and judges committee led by Mr. Chris Roberts. So the meeting was held in Dubai, as are the championships currently going on, and the AIBA leader called for honesty and transparency and promised to support referees and judges in the coming days, saying AIBA will help every member of its family, including referees and judges. You are part of the world of boxing, a part of our family. You are one of the leading directions of our sport, and you should be dedicated to strict AIBA rules and never violated. The strongest should always win. If you become an AIBA judge or referee, you should defend all athletes and represent honesty, not one single country. Should I hear about a violation, we will exclude you from refereeing and judging for a lifetime. We have to fight for total honesty, and we will say farewell to all of those who are not on our team. We will also not allow anyone to accuse our referees and judges of misjudging. We are reforming the refereeing and judging scoring system. The new uniform for referees and judges will be presented shortly, and we will create courses in each national federation language on refereeing and judging. AIBA Secretary General Mr. Istvan also said that the organization will welcome all ideas for that development, saying, I dedicated my whole life to boxing, and I will die for our athletes if it's needed. We have to give each other a hand and work together as we have a common goal. We've already implemented open scoring, bout review. Scoring systems are going to be updated soon. Millions of kids are dreaming of becoming a champion one day, and you are judging those kids. And this is a huge responsibility. You are our best referees and judges. You work with the best athletes. All is in your hands. We will show zero tolerance if someone is judging not fairly. One mistake can ruin your whole career. We trust you, and you can trust us. We have started to write a new chapter in our history. Chairman of the referee and judging committee, Mr. Chris Roberts, added that while they are working together with the coaches committee now to improve AIBA technical and competition rules, he called the development of the programs the key work that they're doing and wished good luck to all referees and judges at the upcoming, or I guess now ongoing, ASBC Asian Boxing Championships, and for those taking part in the educational program in Dubai to certify new 3-star AIBA judges. So, speaking of the AI, not the AIBA specifically, but specifically about the tournament going on in Dubai, preliminary action has started, has been taking place across most categories here. The men's light flyweight, bantamweight, lightweight, light welterweight, middleweight, light heavy, and super heavyweight categories, with a total of 23 bouts being contested on the first day of actual matches. Iranian boxers were able to take home 4 wins on the first day, beginning with Ahmed Mustafa knocking out Kuwait's Ali Jassim in the opening round of the flyweight category, courtesy of a strong right-handed jab. Maysam Gishlagi recorded a comfortable points win against Sumit Sagwan of India in the light heavyweight category, while Ihsan Ruzbahani beat Sultan Al-Shamari of Kuwait in the light heavyweight category when their bout was abandoned in the opening round, which was a bit of a theme on the day. We saw a few of those. In the lightweight category, Daniel Shakbasha won narrowly on points 3-2 against Sirik Temirjanov of Kazakhstan. Afghanistan earned a points win courtesy of Ramesh against Marvin Tabamo of Philippines in the flyweight division, and Malik Zada won against Bakhtovar Sazagov of Tajikistan in the bantamweight division. The country's other winner was Sultan Muhammad, who beat Bahrain's Abdullah Fadul Hamrat in the light welterweight division when the referee stopped the contest again in the first round. 3 Mongolian boxers were able to secure points wins, with Karku Ekmandak beating Sultan Al-Nuami of the United Arab Emirates in the flyweight division. Orkan Tunglag beat Orkan Tungalag Unobold, defeating Sajiva Nuan Kumara of Sri Lanka in the light heavyweight division, and Afghan Batar Bayamba Erdin beating Ridad Talib Jabbar of Iraq in the middleweight division. Tajikistan was also brought home 3 wins on the opening day of action, including in the middleweight category, where Abdul Malik Boltav beat Fahad Alomiri Walid of Qatar, while their fight was again abandoned in the first round. Again, it was a bit of a theme on the day. Surovish Zhukarov beat Kyrgyzstan's Toktsun Bekbolason in the super heavyweight category, as he also won on points, while Abdurrahman Yakubov triumphed over Saab Al-Sadid of the United Arab Emirates with a walkover. Boxers from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, India, the Philippines also won on the opening day's preliminary bouts at the Grand Ballroom at Le Méridien Hotel in Dubai. A total of 150 boxers from 17 countries are participating in this event, which is due to wrap up in and around the 1st of June. And we'll obviously be bringing you some more coverage of that tournament as it progresses a little bit farther into it. But a lot going on the first opening days, other than my pronunciation of what was going on the first couple of days there. A lot of good boxing going on, and a lot of things looking forward to in this tournament. Some big names that we're going to start seeing at the Olympics as well.
Yeah, I happened to mention in your absence yesterday some of the initial bouts that were scheduled, and that the boxing world was looking forward to. So it's interesting you bring up some of those names. I merely mentioned countries, I believe. So good on you. But it's looking good. I'm the one question I had yesterday I couldn't find an answer for quickly online was whether or not they were streaming these bouts from the Meridian Ballroom.
Now I was all weekend long. I've been out of commission all weekend, as you know. So I haven't actually gone through. I will be looking for streaming. You will be able to find something on YouTube. Somebody will be streaming this. I have not seen an official stream that has been launched as of yet, but if I do come across one, I'll definitely let you guys know tomorrow morning.
Yeah, cool. Wow, that was an excellent report. Thank you.
But yeah, that's about all we've got going on for today.
All right, then. Great.
Again, things are pretty quiet on the European front as we're getting closer and closer to June and Paris. So, a lot of our European friends are going back into training camp at this point in time. But one thing, Graham, this is a bit of an aside, but something that we haven't really been talking about, or we've been dancing around when we talk about things like COVID-19 vaccines, and how that can impact the training regimen for some of these boxers. Because I think you're coming up on your second shot. I just got my first shot yesterday, my first dose of the vaccine yesterday, and although I feel totally normal, feel totally fine, I do feel like I got hit in the shoulder with a sledgehammer today, though. The bruising, and they say it only lasts about a day or so, but like the bruising in the shoulder area, my one arm feels like it weighs about an extra 5 pounds, and it feels like it got hit pretty hard. So I have to assume that trying to get these jabs into arms before an event, as these guys are still training for events. Now they also have to try to time making sure that their athletes are vaccinated in the run up to Tokyo, but also, for example, we've got a big tournament starting up next. Well, we got one going on right now. We've got another one starting next week or the week after in Paris, where you have to make sure that these players, they get their jabs, but also that they have time to physically recover from that jab and keep their training going. Because, again, mild symptoms, just feel like I got hit in the arm. But, for some people, they're getting flu-like symptoms for a couple of days afterwards. And that can really throw a wrench into that whole training regime as well, because we're going to be talking about really strict regimented training at this point in time. Everything from diet to what time you're getting up in the morning. Everything is regimented now as we get this close to the games and major tournaments. So I'm surprised we haven't heard more about how things like receiving the vaccine has impacted actual training schedules. Not sure what your experience was like with that. Not that you're training heavily at the moment.
It didn't impact my training at all. I'm happy to report. And indeed, looking forward to my second shot, as it won't impact anything that I do.
There we go.
Well, glad to have you back on the show. We missed you. My commentary is not half as good as yours, nor as well researched, but I tried my best, and I'm glad you're coming back and feeling good, I hope, and looking forward to tomorrow.
I'll be here.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl.